A crying baby stopped the wedding, but what the maid of honor did next would bind her to the most feared man in Chicago. Rain struck the stained glass windows as Brooke Lawson stood beside the altar, smiling through a grief no one in the room could see. Then the baby screamed. Not a restless cry, but the desperate sound of a child who had lost something she could not name. In the shadows near the chapel doors stood Gabriel Moretti, a ruthless crime boss holding his infant daughter like a man facing the one enemy money and violence could not defeat. Brooke stepped away from the bride, walked down the aisle, and made a choice that would change 3 broken lives. Stay to the end, because this is more than a mafia romance. It is a story about grief, trust power, and the dangerous price of becoming a family. Like the video and comment where you are watching from. 3 hours before the baby screamed, Brooke Lawson stood barefoot in the bridal suite and tried to fasten the final pearl button on Natalie's wedding dress. Outside, rain silvered the windows of Blackwood Estate. Lake Michigan had disappeared behind a wall of mist, and bare branches scraped against the glass whenever the wind rose. Inside, the room smelled of white roses, hairspray, and coffee gone cold. Natalie watched Brooke through the mirror. "You missed one." Brooke looked down. Her fingers had stopped halfway up the row of buttons. "Sorry. You've said that 6 times in the last 10 minutes. Brooke forced a smile. "At least I'm consistent." Natalie turned carefully, gathering the lace skirt in both hands. She looked radiant, but concern had been gathering in her eyes all morning. "When did you sleep last night?" That wasn't an answer. It was technically an answer. Natalie reached for Brooke's hand. Brooke tried not to flinch, but her best friend felt the tension anyway. "You don't have to stand beside me today." Brooke looked toward the emerald dress hanging near the fireplace. It was pressed, fitted, and perfect, as if it belonged to a woman whose life still made sense. "Yes, I do." "No, you want to. That's different. You stood beside me at the hospital." Natalie's face changed. The words settled between them with the weight of something neither woman had learned how to carry. Brooke looked away first. A small white box sat on the vanity beneath a folded handkerchief. She had noticed it when she entered, but she had avoided asking about it. The box looked too deliberate, too private. Natalie followed her gaze. "I was going to give it to you after the reception." Brooke said nothing. Natalie lifted the lid. Inside lay a thin silver bracelet. A tiny round charm caught the light. 2 letters had been engraved across it. D.L. Daisy Lawson. Brooke's breath left her so quietly that Natalie almost did not hear it. "I thought you might want something you could wear," Natalie said. "Something that keeps her close without making you explain anything to anyone." Brooke stared at the bracelet. The room blurred at the edges. For 1 second she saw another ceiling. White panels, fluorescent lights. A red line moving across a monitor while strangers spoke too quickly above her. She remembered asking where her baby was. She remembered a nurse lowering her eyes. She remembered the silence after. Brooke closed the box. Not today. Natalie nodded immediately. Not today. Brooke crossed the room and opened the garment bag. "I should get dressed." Natalie did not stop her. That was how they had survived the past 3 months. Natalie offered a door. Brooke decided whether she could walk through it. By the time the ceremony began, Brooke had rebuilt herself into something presentable. Her hair was pinned at the nape of her neck. Makeup concealed the sleeplessness beneath her eyes. The emerald dress fit closely across her ribs, although she had lost enough weight that the seamstress had altered it twice. No one looking at her beside the altar would have guessed that she still woke with milk staining her nightshirt. No one would have known that every few days she stood in the shower and pressed her palms against her aching breasts until the pressure eased. Her body had not accepted what the doctors had told her. Daisy was gone. The milk still came. Brooke had pumped during the first month because stopping hurt too much. She had labeled each bottle before remembering there was no infant waiting for it. At first, she poured the milk into the sink while crying so hard she could barely stand. Later, she stopped looking. She had considered donating it. She never completed the paperwork. Grief had turned even generosity into a task too large to finish. Then Lucy Moretti screamed inside the chapel, and Brooke's body answered before she could silence it. Now after the ceremony, she sat in a private alcove with the sleeping child against her chest. The chapel beyond the stained glass had emptied into the reception hall. Music drifted faintly through the walls. Guests laughed, glasses touched, and somewhere a photographer called for the bride's family to gather. Brooke heard all of it from a distance. Lucy's breathing was warm against her skin. Gabriel Moretti sat beside them, his elbows resting on his knees. His suit looked as though it had been cut directly onto him, but the exhaustion in his face made the expensive tailoring seem irrelevant. Brooke had known powerful men before. Her former fiancé Logan had needed every room to bend around him. He corrected waiters, interrupted doctors, chose which friends Brooke saw, and called it protection whenever she objected. Gabe's power felt different, quieter, more dangerous because it did not need to announce itself. He watched Lucy sleep with the concentration of a man waiting for a bomb to stop ticking. 7 caregivers, Brooke asked. 7 since Elena died. Some were there only a few days. 1 left after a single night. Brooke looked down at Lucy's thin wrist. How much is she eating? Not enough. That isn't a number. Gabe's jaw tightened. 4 ounces on a good day. Sometimes 5. Brooke looked at him sharply. Total? Yes. She is 8 months old. I know how old my daughter is. The edge in his voice could have cut glass. Brooke did not retreat. Then you know this is not fussiness. His eyes met hers. For a moment, the air inside the alcove tightened. Then his anger cracked. What do you want me to say? The truth. I've taken her to 3 pediatricians. They checked for reflux allergies, infections, heart problems. Every test came back normal. They told me some babies take longer to adjust. To what? His gaze fell to Lucy. To being alive without her mother. Brooke's throat tightened. The answer was too honest to dismiss. Who feeds her most often, whoever she allows near her? That may be part of the problem. Gabe lifted his head. You've been holding her for 10 minutes, and in 10 minutes I've seen a baby who expects every pair of arms to disappear. A shadow crossed his face. Brooke softened her voice. She isn't rejecting everyone because she's difficult. She has no idea who will still be there when she wakes up. Gabe looked toward the chapel doors. I'm there. Are you? The question landed harder than Brooke intended. His shoulders went still. She regretted it, but not enough to take it back. Gabe rose from the bench and walked to the stained glass. Colored light fell across his face. I was in a meeting when Elena went into labor, he said. My phone was outside the room. By the time someone reached me, she was already in surgery. Brooke said nothing. I arrived in time to see Lucy through the nursery glass. Elena was 3 floors below me, bleeding. I kept moving between them because I thought I could somehow keep both alive if I never stopped walking. His voice remained controlled, but his right hand had closed into a fist. Elena died before dawn. Brooke looked down at Lucy. What happened after that? I brought my daughter home. That isn't what I asked. Gabe turned toward her. Brooke held his gaze. What happened between you and Lucy? For several seconds, he did not answer. When she cried, I saw Elena dying. The admission barely carried across the alcove. I would hold Lucy and feel angry. Not at her. I knew it wasn't her fault. But grief doesn't care what you know. Brooke understood that more than she wanted to. So you hired people. I hired the best people money could find. And when they failed, I hired someone else. Lucy stirred against Brooke's chest. Brooke adjusted her hold until the baby settled again. Money can buy consistency, Brooke said. But only if you stop replacing people before trust has time to form. Gabe looked at his sleeping daughter. I thought keeping my distance protected her from me. It protected you from feeling helpless. His gaze snapped back to Brooke. She did not apologize. The music from the reception grew louder as the doors opened somewhere down the hall. Gabe returned to the bench. What do you need? For tonight. For whatever comes after tonight. Brooke drew a slow breath. I haven't agreed to anything. You said 2 weeks. I said it because your daughter was asleep in my arms and you looked like a man standing at the edge of a building. I don't make promises I can't keep, neither do I. Then tell me your conditions. Brooke studied him. He had moved quickly from desperation to negotiation. It should have unsettled her. It did. But beneath the authority in his voice, she could still see the frightened father who had watched his daughter stop crying for the first time in months. Lucy sees her pediatrician tomorrow. Gabe nodded. A different pediatrician. Brooke continued. Someone who specializes in feeding and developmental delays. Done. We speak to a lactation consultant before I nurse her again. His eyes moved briefly toward Lucy, then back to Brooke. Why? Because you don't know my medical history. You don't know whether I take medication. You don't know whether continuing is safe. You told me it was safe. I told you one feeding was unlikely to hurt her. That is not the same as creating a plan. Gabe accepted the correction with a slight movement of his head. What else I keep my apartment? You'll be safer in my home. That wasn't a request. His expression cooled. Brooke continued before he could interrupt. I keep my practice. I keep my own income. My patient records remain private. No one in your organization touches my files, enters my sessions, or investigates my clients. My people protect what is inside my home. They do not protect confidential records by reading them. Gabe leaned back slightly. You believe I would use your patience against you? I don't know what you would do. We met less than an hour ago. Something almost like approval passed through his eyes. Good, he said. Brooke frowned. What is good? You understand that you shouldn't trust me yet. She looked at him for a long moment. Natalie gets your address. I call her every day. I leave whenever I choose with Lucy returned safely to your care. And if leaving harms Lucy, then we discuss it. You do not lock a door, take my phone, threaten my career, or decide that fear gives you ownership of me. His expression changed at the word ownership. Brooke wondered what he saw in her face. Someone did that before he said. It was not a question. Brooke's fingers tightened around Lucy's blanket. This conversation is about your daughter. For now. Brooke ignored the quiet implication. One more condition. I am not replacing you. Gabe's face hardened again. I didn't ask you to. You asked me to move into your home because I can give Lucy something you cannot. I can't nurse her. This isn't only about nursing. Gabe said nothing. Brooke leaned forward. If this arrangement works, Lucy must learn that safety comes from more than one person. You will feed her. You will hold her when she cries. You will learn her routines instead of paying someone else to memorize them. I run several businesses, then rearrange your calendar. His eyes narrowed. Most people probably did not speak to Gabriel Moretti that way. Brooke was too tired to be impressed by fear. She does not need another employee, she said. She needs her father. A small voice interrupted them. There you are. Natalie stood at the entrance to the alcove, still wearing her wedding gown. The train had been gathered over one arm. Ethan waited several feet behind her. Natalie's eyes moved from Brooke to Gabe, then to Lucy, asleep against Brooke's chest. "Is she all right?" "She's resting," Brooke said. Natalie entered slowly. Gabe stood. The simple movement caused Ethan to straighten. Brooke noticed it. Everyone around Gabe measured distance exits and tone. Natalie did not. She walked directly to Brooke and touched her shoulder. "What happened?" Brooke glanced at Gabe. "I fed her." Natalie's gaze dropped to the loosened front of Brooke's dress. Understanding arrived in stages. "Oh." Gabe looked toward Ethan. "My daughter was in distress." Ethan gave a careful nod. "No one is questioning that." Natalie looked at Gabe. "I am." Brooke closed her eyes briefly. "Natalie. No, I want to understand why my best friend is sitting in a church with your child while her own grief is barely 3 months old." Gabe's face revealed nothing. Brooke answered before he could. "I chose to help her." Natalie looked at Lucy. "And now Mr. Moretti has asked me to stay with her for 2 weeks." Ethan muttered something under his breath. Natalie went completely still. "You're going home with him tomorrow. You don't know him." "I know what Lucy needs." "That's not the same thing." Gabe's voice was calm. "Mrs. Brooks, your concern is reasonable." Natalie turned toward him. "You don't get to make my concern sound like a business objection." Natalie, Ethan said quietly. She ignored him. "My best friend lost her daughter. She hasn't slept properly in months. She returned to work before she was ready, stopped seeing her therapist, and refuses to talk about the man who abandoned her in the hospital." Brooke felt the blood drain from her face. "Enough." Natalie looked at her. Pain replaced anger immediately. "I'm sorry." Gabe's attention had sharpened at the mention of Logan. Brooke shifted Lucy carefully and stood. "I'm not being forced into anything. I set conditions. Lucy sees a specialist tomorrow. We make a medically supervised plan. I keep my apartment and my work. I check in with you every day." Natalie searched her face. "Why do you need to do this?" Brooke looked down at the sleeping child. Because holding Lucy had made her body feel useful instead of betrayed. Because for the first time since Daisy died, the sound of an infant breathing had not destroyed her. Because Lucy's need was immediate while Brooke's grief had become an endless room with no door. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I need to find out." Natalie's eyes filled. "That answer terrifies me." "It terrifies me too." Ethan stepped closer. "Brooke, there are things you should understand about Gabe before you make this decision." Gabe looked at him without expression. Ethan continued carefully. "The Moretti family owns legitimate companies, shipping, construction, security restaurants. There are also allegations." "What kind of allegations?" Brooke asked. "The kind people in Chicago don't repeat unless they want trouble." Gabe adjusted one cuff. "You can say the word criminal, Ethan. It will not offend me." Ethan met his gaze. "People connected to your enemies disappear. People disappear in every large city. And warehouses burn. Buildings are flammable." Natalie looked at Brooke. "This is what I mean." Brooke turned to Gabe. "Are you going to tell me he's wrong?" Gabe did not answer immediately. "I am going to tell you that Lucy is separate from my business. No child is separate from the world her parent creates." The sentence came out sharper than Brooke expected. Something unreadable moved across Gabe's face. Perhaps no one had challenged that distinction before. He reached into his jacket and handed Brooke a black business card. Only his name and a telephone number appeared on it. "A driver will collect you at 8 tomorrow morning. I can drive myself. My daughter will already be in the car." Brooke glanced down at Lucy. "You planned this quickly." "I plan everything quickly." "That isn't reassuring. It wasn't intended to be." Natalie took Brooke's free hand. "Promise me you will call if anything feels wrong." I promise. Not text. Call. I will. And you keep your apartment. I already told him. Natalie looked at Gabe. She keeps her apartment. Gabe's mouth almost curved. I heard her the first time. The reception music swelled again. Ethan glanced toward the hall. We should get back before my mother sends a search party. Natalie did not move. Brooke leaned close and kissed her cheek. Go be married. Natalie held her gaze for another second, then nodded. As she turned away, she placed the small white box from the bridal suite on the bench beside Brooke. You don't have to wear it, she said. Just don't leave her behind because you're afraid loving someone else will make her smaller. Brooke could not answer. Natalie and Ethan walked back toward the reception. Gabe looked at the box. Daisy Brooke's throat tightened. My daughter. He did not offer sympathy. He did not tell her Daisy was in a better place or that time would make the pain easier. He simply said her name. Daisy. The sound of it in another person's voice nearly broke Brooke open. Lucy woke and began searching against her chest. Brooke looked toward Gabe. We need permission from the doctor before this becomes a routine. Gabe lifted his daughter carefully from Brooke's arms. Lucy's face crumpled at once. Her small body stiffened. Gabe held her close, but panic had already entered his posture. Brooke resisted the instinct to take the baby back. Sit down, she said. Lucy screamed. Gabe's jaw clenched. She wants you. She needs to learn you are staying. He sat. Brooke guided his hand to the center of Lucy's back. Not so fast. Slow your breathing. I am breathing. You're preparing for battle. That is how I breathe. Not with her. He looked irritated, but he obeyed. Brooke placed one palm over his wrist. Inhale slowly. Lucy's cries continued. Again. Gabe's shoulders lowered by a fraction. Talk to her. What do I say? Anything true? He looked down at his daughter. I'm here. Lucy screamed against his chest. Gabe closed his eyes. I should have been here sooner. His voice roughened. I didn't know how to look at you without seeing what I lost. Brooke's hand remained over his wrist. But I'm looking now. Lucy's cries weakened. Gabe continued rocking. I'm here, Piccola. I'm not leaving. Several minutes passed. The baby's rigid body softened. Her hand opened against his shirt. Then Lucy fell asleep in her father's arms. Gabe stared down at her as if he had been handed something sacred. Brooke stepped back. That is where we start. The next morning, rain still hung over Chicago when Brooke arrived at a private pediatric clinic near Streeterville. Gabe was already there with Lucy and two men in dark suits. One introduced himself as Marcus Bell, head of security. The other remained near the elevator. Brooke looked at Gabe. I said medical appointment, not military occupation. Lucy receives protection everywhere. So does the president. His guards still know how to sit down. Marcus coughed into one hand, hiding what might have been a laugh. Gabe gave him a look. Marcus sat. Dr. Helen Park examined Lucy for nearly an hour. She reviewed previous tests, measured her weight, observed her muscle tone, and watched her respond to Brooke and Gabe. When the examination ended, Doctor, Park folded her hands over the chart. Lucy is underweight. Her motor development is delayed, and the feeding history concerns me. I don't see signs of an immediate medical crisis, but we need close monitoring. Gabe's voice was controlled. Can Brooke nursing her solve the problem? No single person can solve this. Brooke watched the answer strike him. Dr. Park continued. Breastfeeding may provide nutrition and comfort if Ms. Lawson is medically cleared. But Lucy also needs predictable care, feeding therapy, and a stable relationship with her father. Gabe glanced at Brooke. She said nothing. A lactation consultant named Rachel Grant met with them next. She reviewed Brooke's health history, medication, recent blood work, and milk production. "You are still producing because your body experienced a birth," Rachel explained. "But the supply may be limited. Nursing can increase it, although we should not assume it will meet Lucy's full nutritional needs." Brooke nodded. Rachel looked at Gabe. "You also need to learn bottle feeding, soothing, and skin contact. Ms. Lawson cannot become the only person your daughter accepts. I understand. Understanding is easier than doing." For the first time that morning, Gabe looked almost offended. Brooke concealed a smile. By early afternoon, they had a written feeding plan, a schedule for weight checks, and instructions for introducing consistency without overwhelming Lucy. Only then did Brooke enter Gabe's penthouse. The elevator opened directly into a vast room of glass, stone, and dark wood. Chicago spread beneath them, the river cutting through towers of steel and reflected light. The view was breathtaking. The silence was not. Cameras followed every entrance. Doors opened with fingerprints. Men in suits moved through the space without making noise. Lucy's nursery stood at the end of a long hallway. Brooke entered and stopped. The room contained everything money could buy: a handcrafted crib, imported blankets, shelves of untouched toys, designer clothes still wearing price tags. Nothing looked used. Nothing looked loved. Gabe stood behind her. "I had it prepared before Elena gave birth." Brooke touched the spine of an unopened storybook. "Did you ever read to Lucy? No. Why not? I assumed she was too young to understand. She doesn't need to understand the words. She needs to know your voice." Gabe looked around the perfect room as if seeing its emptiness for the first time. That evening, Lucy slept for 40 minutes, then woke screaming. Brooke carried her toward the nursery, but stopped outside Gabe's office. Inside, he spoke in a low voice over the phone. "No, do not touch him until I know who authorized it." Brooke knocked once and entered. Gabe ended the call. "What happened?" Lucy woke up. He rose immediately. Brooke placed the baby in his arms. Lucy cried harder. Gabe looked toward Brooke. "Take her." "No, she is hungry. She ate less than an hour ago. She wants you. She needs you." His face tightened. Brooke noticed the leather holster beneath his jacket. "Take the gun off." His gaze became cold. "It is secured. That isn't the point. She doesn't know what it is. You do. Your entire body is telling her there is danger in the room." For several seconds, they faced each other in silence. Then Gabe removed the holster and placed it on the desk. Brooke guided him into the nursery. "Sit in the chair." He obeyed. Lucy screamed against his chest. Gabe's breathing became shallow. "She hates me. She doesn't know you yet. She is my daughter. That doesn't mean trust arrives automatically." The words wounded him. Brooke saw it. She crouched beside the chair. "Hold her closer. Let her hear your heart." Gabe adjusted Lucy carefully. "Now breathe." Minutes passed. Lucy's cries lost their sharp edge. Gabe began speaking to her in Italian, his voice so soft Brooke could not understand every word. The baby's eyes drifted closed. Her fingers loosened against his shirt. Gabe did not move. Brooke rose quietly and left them together. In her guest room, she opened the suitcase Natalie had helped pack. The white jewelry box rested between two folded sweaters. Brooke sat on the floor and lifted the bracelet from its velvet lining. She fastened it around her wrist. Across the hallway, Lucy breathed through the baby monitor. The sound comforted Brooke. The comfort brought guilt with it. She pressed Daisy's charm to her lips. "I'm not replacing you," she whispered. The penthouse gave no answer. Near dawn, Brooke woke thirsty and walked toward the kitchen. A single light burned over the marble counter. Gabe stood at the sink with his sleeves rolled to his elbows. Red water circled the drain. His knuckles were split and bleeding. He closed his fist when he saw her. Brooke looked from his hand to the dark stain on his cuff. What happened, business? You said Lucy would be kept separate from that world. She is. Brooke glanced toward the nursery, then around the guarded home where all three of them now slept. No, Gabe, Brooke said quietly. She isn't. The red water continued circling the drain. Gabe reached for a towel and wrapped it around his injured hand. His movements were precise, almost casual, but Brooke could see the tension in his shoulders. Lucy was asleep, he said. That does not make this separate from her. What happened tonight will never reach the nursery. It already did. You walked into this kitchen bleeding. Gabe looked toward the dark hallway. The penthouse was silent except for the faint static of the baby monitor clipped to Brooke's waistband. You should go back to bed. Brooke folded her arms. That is not an answer. His expression hardened. It was the face he probably showed men who had made mistakes they would not survive twice. Brooke had seen intimidation before. Logan used silence, lowered voices, and carefully chosen words to make her question whether her fear was reasonable. She would not do that again. If I am living here, she said, I need to know when the danger outside this home follows you through the door. You do not need details. I need enough truth to make my own decisions. Gabe's jaw shifted. One of my warehouses had a problem. What kind of problem leaves blood on your hands? A man believed stealing from me would have no consequences. Brooke looked at his knuckles. And you corrected him? Yes. The directness chilled her more than a lie would have. Did you kill him? No. She released a breath she had not intended to hold. Gabe noticed. You are frightened of me. I would be foolish not to be. Something passed through his eyes. Not anger. Recognition. Then why are you still standing here? Brooke touched the silver bracelet around her wrist. Because your daughter is sleeping across the hall. That is not the only reason. It is the reason that matters tonight. Gabe looked at the bracelet, then at her face. Daisy. Brooke's throat tightened. Yes. He nodded once. No apology. No reassurance. He simply stepped away from the sink and opened a cabinet beneath it. A medical kit sat inside. Brooke watched him attempt to clean his knuckles with one hand. You are doing that badly. I will survive. That was not my concern. She crossed the kitchen and took the antiseptic from him. Gabe remained still as she unwrapped the towel. The cuts were shallow, but the skin across 2 knuckles had split. Brooke cleaned them without asking whose face had caused the damage. His hand was large beneath hers, warm, capable of tenderness and violence with equal ease. She did not know which truth frightened her more. You do not have to fix everything with your hands, she said. That is sometimes the fastest method. Fast is not the same as good. In my world, fast keeps people alive, and sometimes it sends you home covered in blood. Gabe watched her place gauze over the worst cut. You speak to me as if I am one of your patients. You are not. Good. I would charge you more. The corner of his mouth moved. It was not quite a smile, but it softened something in the room. A small sound came through the monitor. Both of them turned toward it. Lucy whimpered once, then fell silent. Gabe lowered his voice. You should sleep. She will wake in 2 hours. You know her schedule. I read the plan Dr. Park gave us. Brooke looked at him. All of it? Twice. That surprised her. Gabe noticed that too. I told you I keep my word. Brooke released his hand. Then prove it tomorrow. He glanced at the bandage. How you take the first bottle. Lucy rejected the bottle the next morning. Gabe sat in the nursery chair with the baby tucked into the bend of his arm. Brooke had expressed milk into a small glass bottle, and Rachel had selected a soft nipple designed for infants with feeding resistance. Lucy turned her face away before it touched her lips. Gabe tried again. The baby's mouth opened, but only to cry. "She knows you are in the room," he said. Brooke stood near the window. "That is fine." "No, it is not. She needs time. She is hungry. She ate 40 minutes ago. This is practice." Lucy began twisting in his arms, searching for Brooke. Gabe looked toward her. Brooke did not move. "Hold her closer. She does not want me. Do not decide what she feels because you are uncomfortable." His gaze sharpened. Brooke kept her voice calm. "She has spent months learning that people disappear. If you hand her back every time she cries, you teach her that your arms are temporary." Gabe looked down at Lucy. The baby screamed, her small face bright red. His entire body became rigid. Brooke recognized the moment. He was preparing to fail before failure could surprise him. "Talk to her." "I have nothing to say. You have 8 months of things you should have said." Gabe inhaled slowly. Lucy's fist struck his shirt. "I know," he whispered. Her cry continued. "I know I was not there." Brooke watched from the other side of the room. "I thought I was protecting you from my grief," he said. "I was protecting myself." Lucy turned her face toward his chest. Gabe adjusted the bottle. This time, when the nipple touched her lips, she did not scream. She did not drink either, but she allowed it to remain there. Gabe barely breathed. Lucy tasted one drop, then another. Her lips closed around the nipple. She took 3 slow swallows before pushing it away. Gabe stared at Brooke. Was that enough? For the first attempt, yes. 3 swallows. Yesterday, she took none. Lucy whimpered. Gabe set the bottle aside and held her against his chest. Brooke watched his hand move carefully over the baby's back. He no longer looked as though he was waiting for someone to rescue him. The next several days developed a rhythm. Brooke woke before sunrise when Lucy stirred. Sometimes she nursed her. Sometimes Gabe gave her a bottle while Brooke remained outside the nursery. They tracked every ounce Lucy consumed, every nap, and every diaper. Dr. Park requested daily updates. Rachel visited twice and corrected Gabe's grip with the blunt patience of someone unimpressed by his reputation. "Your daughter is not a business negotiation," she told him. Gabe looked offended. Rachel handed him the bottle. "Stop trying to win." Brooke turned away to hide her smile. Lucy gained 4 ounces in the first week. It was not miraculous. She still refused some feedings. She cried when unfamiliar staff entered the room. She woke from naps reaching for someone who was not there. But the changes appeared in small, undeniable moments. Her eyes followed Gabe when he crossed the nursery. She relaxed when he spoke Italian. She allowed Marcus to hold her while Brooke showered. One morning, Gabe sneezed during breakfast. Lucy looked up from her high chair. A tiny sound escaped her. Gabe froze. Brooke lowered her coffee. "Do that again. I cannot sneeze on command. Try." He gave her a look. Brooke waited. Gabe turned toward Lucy and made an exaggerated sound. Lucy blinked. He tried again. This time she laughed. It was a bright, startled burst that filled the kitchen. Gabe stared at her as if the world had shifted beneath his feet. Lucy laughed again. Brooke covered her mouth, but her own laughter escaped. Marcus entered carrying a folder and stopped in the doorway. Gabe pointed at him. Not a word. Marcus looked at Lucy, then at Brooke. "I heard nothing." Gabe pretended to sneeze again. Lucy laughed until she hiccuped. That evening, Brooke resumed therapy. She had ignored 3 messages from Dr. Sullivan before finally answering the 4th. The session took place in Gabe's library because it had the only door with a lock that did not require security access. Dr. Sullivan appeared on Brooke's laptop screen with the same calm expression she had worn before Daisy's birth. "I was beginning to think you had changed your number." "I was busy." With work, Brooke looked toward the closed door. "With a child." Dr. Sullivan waited. Brooke explained the wedding, Lucy, the medical plan, and the temporary arrangement. She avoided describing Gabe until Dr. Sullivan asked directly, "What does caring for Lucy give you purpose?" "You had purpose before, not like this. What does it allow you to avoid?" Brooke looked down at Daisy's bracelet. "I am not using her. That was not my question." Heat rose into Brooke's face. "I know she is not Daisy. Knowing something intellectually does not prevent emotional substitution." Brooke stood and walked toward the window. The Chicago River reflected gray afternoon light far below. "When Lucy cries, I can do something." The words came out thinner than she intended. Dr. Sullivan remained silent. "With Daisy, I woke up after everything was over. Everyone had already made decisions. The doctors had stopped trying. Logan had left. My daughter was gone, and my body was still waiting to feed her." Brooke pressed one hand against the cold glass. "When Lucy cries, I do not have to lie there and wait for someone to tell me I am too late." "Helping Lucy may be meaningful," Dr. Sullivan said. "It may also become a place where you hide from the fact that Daisy cannot be rescued." Brooke closed her eyes. "I hate when you say her name. Why?" "Because it makes her real. She was real." Brooke's breath broke. The tears came before she could turn away from the camera. She ended the session 10 minutes later, embarrassed and exhausted. When she opened the library door, Gabe sat on the floor across the hall. His back rested against the wall. His jacket was gone, and the sleeves of his white shirt were rolled to his forearms. Brooke wiped her face. "Were you listening, No? Then why are you sitting there? I heard you crying." "That happens." "I know." He did not stand. He did not ask what Dr. Sullivan had said. Brooke sat beside him. For several minutes neither spoke. The silence was not empty. It did not demand that she recover quickly or reassure him that she was fine. Gabe simply stayed. Brooke rested her head against the wall. Daisy would have been 4 months old next week. Gabe turned his face toward her. What was she like? Brooke looked at him. Most people asked what happened. Almost no one asked who Daisy had been. She had dark hair, Brooke said. More than the nurses expected. One hand stayed curled beside her cheek. Gabe listened. She weighed 3 pounds and 9 ounces. I saw one photograph after I woke up. You did not hold her. Not while she was alive. His hand moved across the floor until his fingers touched hers. He did not close them. He waited. Brooke turned her hand over. Their palms met. She knew you, Gabe said. You cannot know that. I know Lucy recognized Elena's voice before she was born. Elena used to sing in the shower. After Lucy came home, the only recording that calmed her was Elena singing. Brooke looked at him. You still have it? Yes. Have you played it recently? Gabe's hand tightened around hers. No. That evening he brought a wooden box into the nursery. It had been hidden at the back of a locked closet. Brooke sat on the rug while Lucy played between them with a soft cloth book. Gabe opened the lid. Inside were photographs, letters, a silk scarf, and a small digital recorder. He lifted the recorder as though it weighed more than it should. Elena made these during her pregnancy. Did she know something might happen? No. She documented everything. She believed memories should not depend on whether people were good at keeping them. He pressed a button. Static filled the room. Then a woman laughed. The sound changed Gabe's face. Elena's voice was warm and amused. Lucy, your father is pretending he is not nervous about becoming a parent. Do not believe him. He reads baby books after midnight and hides them behind financial reports. Brooke looked toward Gabe. He stared at the recorder. On the rug, Lucy became still. Elena began singing softly in Italian. Lucy's head lifted. Her eyes widened. Gabe covered his mouth with one hand. Brooke's chest tightened. Lucy crawled toward the recorder, unsteady but determined. Gabe reached for her. For a moment, he held his daughter while his dead wife sang to both of them. Brooke did not touch him. She waited until Gabe reached for her hand. The three of them remained on the nursery floor until the recording ended. After that night, Elena became part of the room. Gabe placed one of her photographs near the crib. Brooke played the recordings during quiet afternoons. She began telling Lucy that the woman in the picture was her mother. Gabe listened from the doorway the first time. Brooke looked at him. "She should know her." "I know. I am not taking her place. I never asked you to." "No. But neither of us can pretend the possibility does not frighten us." Gabe entered the room. "What frightens you that Lucy may need me in a way I cannot survive losing?" His gaze held hers. "And what frightens you about me?" Brooke looked toward the hallway, where 2 armed guards stood beyond sight. "That I may begin confusing protection with love." Gabe absorbed the answer without defending himself. "Then, tell me when they feel the same." "I will." Days became easier to measure through Lucy than through the calendar. She gained weight. She learned to push herself upright on her hands. She reached for Gabe when he entered the room. Brooke returned to seeing clients through video sessions. Gabe converted a guest office into a private workspace and ordered additional sound insulation after Brooke explained confidentiality. He did not ask who her clients were. He did not allow security staff inside during appointments. It was a small act of restraint, but Brooke understood that restraint did not come naturally to him. Their attraction developed in quiet spaces. Gabe's hand rested briefly at the center of Brooke's back when a delivery crew crowded the hallway. Brooke repaired a loose button on his cuff while Lucy slept against his shoulder. Their fingers touched over bottles, blankets, and coffee mugs. Each contact lasted slightly longer than necessary. Neither acknowledged it. One night, Brooke fell asleep in the nursery chair after feeding Lucy. She woke beneath a wool blanket. Gabe sat on the floor beside the crib, reading reports under the light of a small lamp. "You could have woken me. You needed sleep." "So do you. I sleep." When he glanced at the papers. "Occasionally." Brooke studied him in the low light. Without the suit jacket and controlled public expression, he looked younger. Still dangerous, but not untouchable. "Why are you sitting on the floor? Lucy wakes when the chair moves." Brooke smiled. "You know that now. I know many things now, such as she prefers the blue blanket. She hates pears. She pulls her left ear when she is tired. She smiles before she sneezes." His voice softened. "And she looks for you whenever a door opens." Brooke's smile faded. "That cannot be permanent." Gabe lowered the report. "Why not?" "Because she needs to feel secure without me." "That is not what I asked." The room became very still. Brooke looked at the sleeping baby. "We agreed on 2 weeks." "Yes. Today is day 11. "I know." Neither said more. On day 12, an envelope arrived from Brooke's professional licensing board. The letter stated that an anonymous complaint had raised concerns about her personal involvement with the family of a minor receiving psychological care. Lucy was not Brooke's patient. That fact should have ended the matter. It did not. Brooke stood in Gabe's office with the letter in her hand. "Someone reported me." Gabe took it and read quickly. "Give me the name of the board director." "No." His gaze lifted. "My attorneys will handle it." "No. They can end this by morning. That is exactly what you cannot do. I am offering legal help. You are offering power before you understand the problem." Gabe placed the letter on his desk. "Someone is trying to damage your career, or someone is asking a legitimate question badly. There is nothing legitimate about an anonymous accusation. There is something legitimate about boundaries. His expression darkened. Brooke continued. I moved into the home of a man I met at a wedding. I am caring for his child, nursing her, and becoming emotionally involved with both of them. Gabe went still. Brooke realized what she had admitted. The words remained between them. Emotionally involved, he repeated. With Lucy. His eyes did not leave hers. Only Lucy Brooke's pulse quickened. This is not the conversation. It appears to be part of it. She looked away first. I will respond through my own attorney. I will document that Lucy is not my client. I will speak to Dr. Sullivan and Dr. Park. You will not call anyone, frighten anyone, or arrange for the complaint to disappear. Gabe's voice became cold. You believe I would threaten your licensing board. I believe you solve threats. His own words returned to him. For several seconds, anger filled the room. Then, Gabe picked up the letter and handed it back. Handle it your way. Brooke searched his face. That is all. No. It is not all. He stepped closer. If they attempt to take your career because you saved my daughter, I will not remain passive. You will remain lawful. His jaw tightened. I will remain patient. It was not the same promise. For Gabe, it was close. The complaint forced Brooke to consider the approaching end of the arrangement. On the 14th evening, she packed one suitcase. She left the rest of her clothes in the closet. She told herself it was because she could return for them later. Lucy slept in the nursery after finishing nearly 6 ounces from a bottle Gabe had given her. Brooke should have felt triumphant. Instead, the quiet room felt like a place she was being removed from. Gabe appeared in the doorway. His gaze dropped to the suitcase. Neither spoke for several seconds. Has she improved enough for you to leave? He asked. Brooke looked toward Lucy. Yes. The word hurt more than she expected. Gabe nodded once. Marcus will drive you home in the morning. Brooke waited. He said nothing else. She had wanted him to ask her to stay. The realization made her angry with herself. This had been a temporary arrangement. Gabe had respected the boundary she created. She had no right to resent him for keeping his word. Thank you, she said. His eyes held hers. For what? For not making this difficult. Something closed behind his expression. I would not use Lucy to keep you here. Brooke looked away. I know. Gabe left the room. That night, Lucy woke shortly after midnight. Her cry cut through the monitor. Brooke rose automatically but stopped when she heard Gabe enter the nursery first. Lucy screamed for several minutes. Every instinct in Brooke's body told her to cross the hall. She remained beside her bed. Through the monitor, she heard Gabe's low voice. I'm here, Piccola, Lucy cried. I know you want Brooke. Brooke covered her mouth. But I'm here. The crying continued, then gradually weakened. Gabe began singing Elena's song. His voice was rough and imperfect. Lucy became quiet. Brooke waited another 10 minutes before entering the nursery. Gabe sat in the chair with his daughter asleep against his chest. He looked up. She did not need me to take her, Brooke whispered. No. The answer should have brought relief. Instead, Brooke felt something inside her break open. Lucy could survive without her. Gabe could care for his daughter without her. Brooke was free to leave. She did not want to. She entered Gabe's office before sunrise. He stood near the windows with a cup of coffee in one hand. The city below was beginning to brighten. My 2 weeks are over, Brooke said. His expression revealed nothing. Yes, I do not want another contract. Gabe set down the cup. What do you want? Brooke's heart pounded hard enough to hurt. I want to know whether you see me as Lucy's nurse or as a woman you want in your life. Gabe crossed the room slowly. I have spent 14 days trying not to want something I have no right to ask for. Brooke held his gaze. Ask. He stopped inches from her. Stay. The word was quiet. Not an order. Not a negotiation. Brooke reached for him first. Gabe's hand came to her face as he kissed her. The kiss carried restraint, grief, and hunger that had been gathering in every silent touch between them. Brooke felt the edge of his control, the effort it took for him not to pull her closer than she had chosen. She closed the distance herself. His other hand settled at her waist. For a few seconds, there was no penthouse, no criminal empire, no hospital room, and no empty nursery waiting inside Brooke's memory. There was only warmth. Then the office door opened. Marcus stood on the threshold, his face stripped of its usual calm. Gabe released Brooke, but did not step far away. "What happened?" he asked. One of the South Side warehouses was hit before dawn. Gabe's expression changed instantly. How many? 3 dead. 2 men missing. Marcus placed a clear evidence sleeve on the desk. Inside was a photograph. Brooke recognized herself standing beside Lucy's stroller outside a downtown clinic. A black circle had been drawn around her face. Across the bottom, someone had written a single sentence in red ink. "Now we know where to hurt you." Brooke read the sentence twice. The second time, the words seemed darker. Gabe took the photograph from the desk and studied every visible detail. The clinic entrance, the parked cars, the reflection in the glass doors. The angle suggested the photographer had been standing across the street close enough to watch without being noticed. Marcus remained near the door. "We are checking traffic cameras and private security footage now." "Who knew about the appointment?" Gabe asked. "You, Brook Drive, Park Rachel, and the driver. And my security team." Marcus nodded. Gabe placed the photograph back inside the clear sleeve. His face had become completely still. Brooke had learned that stillness was more dangerous than anger. "Lucy and Brooke leave within the hour," he said. Brooke looked at him. "Leave for where? The Wisconsin property?" "No." Gabe turned toward her. "This is not a discussion. Then you invited the wrong woman into your home." Marcus lowered his eyes. Gabe spoke without looking away from Brooke. "Give us the room." Marcus left and closed the door. The silence that followed felt charged enough to break the glass walls around them. 3 men are dead," Gabe said. 2 more are missing. Someone followed you while you were carrying my daughter. You are leaving, and I will handle the attack. From here, wherever I need to be." Brooke stepped closer to the desk. "So your plan is to put Lucy and me in a guarded house while you disappear into a war. My plan is to keep you alive. You do not get to make fear sound like authority." His eyes hardened. "You think this is about authority? I think you are terrified, and control is the only language you trust when you are afraid." Gabe moved around the desk. "If someone takes you, they will not ask for money. They will use you until I give them what they want. If someone takes Lucy, there is no agreement I would not make and no line I would not cross." His voice never rose. That made the words worse. Brooke's anger faltered, but she did not step back. "I will go to Wisconsin with Lucy." Relief crossed his face for only a second. "You are coming with us?" "No." "Yes." "My men need to see me here. Your daughter needs to see you alive. That is not how this world works. Then explain how it works. Do not send me away and call that protection." Gabe looked toward the photograph. Brooke lowered her voice. "I am not asking you to abandon your people. I am asking you to stop treating love like a weakness you have to hide in another state." His jaw tightened. "Wisconsin is secure. I can coordinate from there." "Then do that. Some meetings require my presence. You can return to Chicago when necessary. You come back every night unless staying here is the only way to keep people alive. You are negotiating with me. I am building a life with you." The words stopped them both. Brooke had not intended to say them. Gabe's expression changed, not softened, opened. For one brief moment, the man who controlled every room seemed uncertain where to place his hands. Brooke continued before fear could take the words back. I stayed because I wanted more than a temporary arrangement. That means I need the truth. It means I stand beside you when things become ugly. It does not mean I become another valuable object you lock away. Gabe's gaze moved over her face. If I agree, you follow every security instruction Marcus gives you. If it concerns an immediate threat, every instruction. No. Brooke. If he tells me not to use a certain door because someone may be outside, I listen. If he tells me I cannot call Natalie for 3 days because you dislike the risk I decide for myself. His frustration showed now. You make everything difficult. No, I make everything shared. Gabe looked down at the photograph again. Then he picked up his phone. Marcus, prepare the Wisconsin house. All 3 of us are leaving. The drive took nearly 5 hours. A second vehicle traveled ahead of them and another followed behind. Marcus sat in the front passenger seat, speaking quietly into an encrypted radio, while Winter Fields passed outside the dark windows. Lucy slept against Brooke for the first hour. Gabe sat beside them, one hand resting near Lucy's foot, as if he needed constant proof that she was still there. No one mentioned the 3 dead men. Their absence remained in the car anyway. Brooke watched snow gather along the highway. Chicago disappeared behind gray sky and long stretches of open land. When Lucy woke, she studied Gabe with serious eyes. He offered her a bottle. She accepted it after only a brief hesitation. The success should have made him smile. Instead, he kept looking through the window. Brooke touched his wrist. Did you know the men who died? Yes. How well one had worked for my family since I was 20. His name was Anthony Hale. He had a wife and 2 sons. Brooke waited. Michael Cruz was 27. His mother still calls him every night before bed. And the 3rd Derek Shaw. Married 6 months ago. Gabe's voice remained controlled, but his fingers closed around the bottle. Their families will be taken care of. Money does not replace them. I know. Do you? His gaze turned toward her. Brooke did not look away. You say their families will be cared for as if that closes the wound. It is what I can do. It is not all you can do. Lucy finished drinking and pushed the bottle away. Gabe wiped her mouth gently. What else would you have me do? Say their names when you speak about what happened. Remember that the cost is people, not territory. Gabe looked down at Lucy. I remember every person who dies because of my decisions. Brooke believed him. That did not make the world around him easier to accept. The Wisconsin house stood beyond a narrow road surrounded by pine forest. From the outside, it resembled an expensive hunting lodge. Heavy timber framed the roof. Smoke rose from 2 stone chimneys. Snow covered the wide porch and the fields beyond it. Inside, steel reinforced the windows. Cameras monitored every entrance. A concealed door near the basement led to an underground tunnel and a second road. Brooke carried Lucy upstairs while men moved equipment into a room below. The bedroom prepared for them had warm wooden walls, thick rugs, and a crib beside the window. The view was peaceful. The security made peace feel artificial. Gabe entered carrying Brooke's suitcase. You will have the adjoining room. And you? Across the hall. Brooke looked at him. After this morning you are sleeping across the hall. I assumed you would want space. I want honesty. I am being honest. No. You are being careful. Gabe set the suitcase down. There is a difference. Careful asks what I want. Fear decides for me before I answer. He studied her. What do you want? Brooke looked toward the open doorway. Marcus and 2 guards moved through the hall. I want you to stop acting as if kissing me created a problem you have to contain. Gabe stepped closer. The problem existed before I kissed you. What problem? That I want you near me even when every instinct says distance would keep you safer. Brooke's pulse quickened. You brought me into this world the moment you asked me to care for Lucy. I know. Then let me choose whether I stay. His gaze dropped briefly to her mouth. You are here. So are you. Gabe touched her face with the back of his fingers. The gesture was restrained, almost cautious. Brooke placed her hand over his. You do not always have to ask permission to touch me. I do until you trust me. I trust you with Lucy. That is not the same. No. His thumb moved over her cheek. Brooke stepped closer and kissed him. The kiss was slower than the first, less desperate. It carried a question and an answer at the same time. When they separated, Lucy made a small sound from the crib. Gabe looked toward her immediately. Brooke smiled. You should go downstairs. I do not want to. That may be the most normal thing you have said. He almost smiled. Lock the door after me. That was not normal. His expression returned to seriousness. Please. Brooke nodded. Please is better. For the next 3 days, the house operated in 2 separate worlds. Downstairs, men arrived before dawn and left after dark. Gabe met with them around long tables covered in maps, shipping records, and photographs. Brooke heard pieces of conversations through closed doors. Routes, retaliation, missing men, boundaries. Upstairs, Lucy practiced crawling across thick rugs. Brooke read her picture books and maintained the feeding schedule. She played Elena's recordings during naps and sent daily updates to Dr. Park. The domestic routine did not erase the danger below. It made the contrast sharper. On the second night, Gabe entered the bedroom after midnight. Blood darkened the edge of his collar. Brooke stood from the chair beside Lucy's crib. Are you hurt? No. Whose blood is that? He looked down at his shirt. Not mine. Brooke closed her eyes for a moment. Did you kill someone? Gabe did not answer. The silence was enough. Brooke walked past him and closed the nursery door behind them. I need the truth. You do not need details that will follow you into sleep. You do not get to choose what I can survive. His expression hardened. I authorized a response against the men who attacked the warehouse. How many to? Are they dead? Yes. The word landed with terrible simplicity. Brooke looked at him. She wanted to step away. Instead, she forced herself to remain still. Did killing them protect us? It prevented another attack tonight. That was not my question. It is the only answer I have. Brooke crossed her arms to stop her hands from trembling. I can love you and still refuse to call every terrible thing you do necessary. Gabe's face changed at the word love. Brooke heard it too late. Neither of them spoke for several seconds. You love me, he said. This is not how I wanted to say it. I did not think you would say it at all. Do not use it to avoid the rest of the conversation. A quiet breath left him. I will not. Brooke studied the blood on his collar. I know your world is violent. I knew that before I stayed, but knowing it as an idea is different from seeing it on your clothes. I warned you. You warned me that you were dangerous. You did not explain what danger asks you to become. Gabe turned toward the window. Snow moved through the darkness beyond the glass. When I am with you and Lucy, I remember there are choices. And when you are downstairs, I remember why men like me survive. Brooke moved closer. I do not expect you to become harmless overnight. I will never be harmless. I know. He looked at her. But I need to know you are not choosing violence because it is easier than restraint. Gabe's jaw tightened. Restraint has a cost. So does killing. He said nothing. Brooke reached for the edge of his collar. I am not asking you to become someone else for me. What are you asking? To decide who you want Lucy to see when she is old enough to understand. The question remained with him long after he left the room. The following afternoon, Lucy pulled herself upright using the low table in the upstairs sitting room. Brooke saw it first. Lucy gripped the edge with both hands, knees shaking beneath her. "Gabe." There was no answer. Brooke called louder. Footsteps approached from the hall. Gabe appeared with a phone pressed to his ear. "I said no movement until I approve the route." Brooke pointed. He stopped speaking. Lucy stood unsteadily, her face bright with concentration. Gabe lowered the phone. "Lucy." She looked toward him, her knees bent. Gabe crossed the room and crouched in front of her. "Come here, Piccola." Brooke held her breath. Lucy released one hand from the table. She wobbled. Then she moved one foot forward and fell against Gabe's chest. He caught her. A laugh escaped him. It was open and young, unlike any sound Brooke had heard from him. Lucy laughed too. Gabe lifted her carefully and kissed her hair. "You did it." The phone remained active in his hand. A man's voice called his name through the speaker. Gabe looked at the device, then at Lucy. "I will call back." He ended the conversation. For several minutes, the criminal dispute waited while Gabe sat on the floor with his daughter. Brooke watched him encourage Lucy to stand again. She understood why his enemies considered love dangerous. It changed what a man was willing to lose. It also changed what he was willing to become. That night, Gabe joined Brooke near the stone fireplace after Lucy fell asleep. He placed 2 glasses of water on the table and sat across from her. "No whiskey?" Brooke asked. "I need a clear head." "That sounds serious." "It is." He rested his forearms on his knees. "The men responsible for the warehouse attack are willing to negotiate. What do they want a shipping route through northern Illinois? And what do you want no more bodies?" Brooke waited. Gabe looked toward the fire. 5 years ago I would have answered 3 dead men with 30. And now I know who waits for me to come home. The words warmed something inside her, but she did not let them erase the cost. "What will your people think if you compromise that you made me weak?" "No, they will think you made me weak." Brooke leaned forward. "Did I?" Gabe looked at her. "You gave me something to protect. That is not weakness. It is a place to aim. The photograph already proved that." He nodded. Brooke reached across the space between them. "Then we decide together what can be protected and what cannot be controlled." Gabe took her hand. "I am giving up part of the route. Will that end the conflict?" "It should. Should is not certainty. There is no certainty in my world. There is none in mine either." He looked at Daisy's bracelet. Brooke followed his gaze. "I used to believe love was a promise that someone would stay," she said. "Then Logan left before I woke up, and Daisy died before I held her. I do not believe that anymore. What do you believe? That love is choosing how we behave while we are here." Gabe turned her hand over in his. "Then choose." Brooke's pulse slowed. "I keep my work. Yes. I keep my apartment until I decide otherwise. Yes. You do not monitor my calls without an immediate security reason." His mouth tightened. "Yes." "Lucy grows up knowing Elena?" "Yes. And I am not your therapist. That may be the most difficult condition." Brooke smiled despite herself. "You need someone independent. I need you. You can need me and still speak to someone trained to help you grieve." Gabe looked deeply offended. Brooke laughed. "You make men confess for a living? You can survive 1 hour with a therapist." "I do not make men confess for a living. What do you call it? Information management. That is worse." This time, Gabe smiled fully. The expression changed his entire face. Brooke moved from her chair and sat beside him. "What am I allowed to ask you for?" he said. "The truth." "You already asked for that. Partnership." His hand settled over hers, and Love Brooke looked at him. "You already have that." He kissed her beside the fire while snow pressed against the windows. For one night, the house felt almost peaceful. The agreement was reached the next morning. Gabe surrendered the northern route in exchange for the return of his missing men and a formal end to the attacks. One of the missing men came home injured. The other did not come home at all. Gabe personally called each family. Brooke watched from the hallway as he spoke the names of the dead. He did not promise that money would make anything right. He listened. That evening they returned to Chicago. The penthouse had been searched, its security system replaced, and every staff member questioned. Brooke felt watched even when she was alone. The cameras that had once seemed like part of Gabe's world now felt like eyes belonging to someone else. Natalie called shortly after midnight. Brooke answered on the second ring. "Natalie." Her friend's breathing was uneven. "I received an email." "What kind of email?" "Photos of you and Lucy." Brooke sat up in bed. Gabe woke beside her immediately. "What photos? You nursing her, walking near the clinic, you and Gabe outside the Wisconsin house." Brooke's blood went cold. "They know about the house. They know everything." Natalie's voice cracked. "The message says they will send the photographs to your licensing board, Child Protection Services, and the police unless you leave Gabe within 24 hours. Gabe held out his hand. Brooke placed the phone on speaker. Natalie continued. "They say he is using your grief. They say Lucy is being endangered and that you are too unstable to understand what is happening." Brooke closed her eyes. The accusation found the exact wound she had been trying to name for weeks. "What address sent it? I forwarded everything to you. Do not respond." "Brooke, should I call the police?" Gabe's face had become still again. "No," Brooke said. "Not yet." "Are you safe?" Brooke looked at Gabe. "Yes." She ended the call and opened the forwarded message. The photographs filled the screen. Private moments. Lucy sleeping against Brooke's chest. Gabe touching Brooke's face beside the Wisconsin house. Natalie meeting them at a cafe. One image showed Brooke standing inside the penthouse nursery. Taken through the doorway. From inside the home. Gabe saw it at the same moment. He took the phone and enlarged the photograph. The camera angle came from the hall near Lucy's room. Only staff and security had access to that floor. Gabe called Marcus. "Lock the building." He turned toward Brooke. "No one leaves. No one enters." Within minutes, Marcus and Dean Foster stood in the bedroom. Dean studied the photographs one by one. The external images could come from surveillance teams, he said. This one could not. He pointed to the nursery photograph. The person who took it knew the camera blind spots and had regular access to the private floor. Marcus's face hardened. "How many people?" "6. Dean placed a list on the table. Brooke recognized several names. One belonged to the guard who had carried Lucy while Brooke attended a therapy session. Another belonged to the man who had installed the lock on Brooke's office. Gabe read the list in silence. Lucy began crying through the monitor. Every man in the room turned toward the sound. Brooke looked at the names again. Someone inside Gabe's home had watched them become a family. Someone Lucy trusted had been waiting for the right moment to tear it apart. Brooke lifted the baby from her crib while Gabe, Marcus, and Dean remained in the bedroom. Lucy pressed her face against Brooke's shoulder, still half asleep. Her small fingers closed around the silver bracelet bearing Daisy's initials. Brooke held her tighter. The 6 names on the table no longer belonged to employees. They belonged to possible threats. Gabe stepped into the nursery. "I am moving you and Lucy downstairs." "No." His expression hardened. "Brooke, she needs sleep. She needs the same room, the same routine and familiar voices. Dragging her into a secure room surrounded by armed men will frighten her. One of those familiar voices may belong to the person who photographed her. Brooke looked toward the hallway. Then remove everyone except Marcus and Dean. That leaves questions. Ask them. Gabe studied her face. He wanted immediate action. Brooke could feel it in the stillness of his body. He also knew she was right. Marcus stays outside the door, he said. No one enters this floor without my approval. Brooke nodded. Gabe touched Lucy's hair. His hand lingered as if he feared she might disappear between one breath and the next. I will find who did this. I know. His eyes moved to Brooke. That was not a reassurance. No. What was it? A reminder that I am watching how you do it. Gabe's mouth tightened. Then he left the nursery. Brooke remained awake long after Lucy fell asleep. Through the closed door, she heard footsteps moving through the penthouse. Doors opened. Voices rose and fell. Men were separated, questioned, and escorted to different rooms. At 3 a.m, Dean brought Brooke a copy of the 6 personnel files. You should rest, he said. So should you. I sleep badly in comfortable places. Brooke looked toward Lucy's crib. Who had access to the nursery? All 6 at different times. 2 installed security equipment, 1 transported medical supplies, 3 rotated through the private floor. Who knew about the Wisconsin property? 4 of them. And Natalie's cafe. All 6 could have obtained the security schedule. Brooke studied the photographs beside the personnel files. One image showed her seated at an outdoor table with Natalie. The angle was distant. Another showed Gabe carrying Lucy from the Wisconsin house. That one had been taken through trees. The nursery photograph felt different. It was not simply surveillance. It was intimate. Whoever took it had stood only a few feet behind Brooke while she sang to Lucy. She examined the list again. Caleb Ward had worked for Gabe for 3 years. He was 29, former military, unmarried, and assigned to rotating interior security. Brooke remembered him holding Lucy once during a video session. He had looked uncomfortable at first. Then Lucy had grabbed his tie and smiled. Caleb had smiled back. Where is he now? Brooke asked. In the library. Has he been questioned briefly? How did he react? Dean leaned against the dresser. He was angry. At being accused. At the way the organization is changing. Brooke looked up. What does that mean? He mentioned the peace agreement. Said Gabe gave up valuable territory because he had become distracted. Did the others say anything similar? Some questioned the decision. Caleb sounded personally offended by it. Brooke returned to his file. He is not afraid of losing his job. Dean watched her. What makes you say that? His anger is moral. This organization does not usually use that word. People always believe their loyalties are moral, even when the thing they serve is violent. Brooke tapped Caleb's photograph. He may believe he is protecting Gabe from weakness. Dean's eyes narrowed. You think he sees you as the problem. I think he sees Lucy and me as proof that Gabe has changed. Dean took the file from her. I will check his financial history again. Not only money. Look for someone who gave him a cause. By sunrise, the penthouse no longer felt like a home. 2 guards stood at every hallway. Employees were escorted to the bathroom. Phones had been collected. Security monitors covered Gabe's dining table. Lucy sensed the tension. She refused breakfast and cried whenever Brooke tried to put her down. Gabe entered the nursery carrying a bottle. Brooke looked at the dark circles beneath his eyes. Did you sleep? No. Did you hurt anyone? No. The answer came quickly. Brooke believed him. Gabe sat in the chair and held out his arms. Lucy turned toward him. Brooke passed her over. The baby clutched his shirt, studied his face, and accepted the bottle after a brief protest. Gabe looked at Brooke. She knows something is wrong. She knows everyone around her is frightened. I am not frightened. Brooke sat on the edge of the rug. You are terrified. His gaze dropped to Lucy. Yes. The admission was barely audible. Brooke reached for his free hand. Then let that fear make you careful. It makes me want every person on that list removed. Removed from the building. You know what I mean. Lucy stopped drinking. Gabe's expression softened immediately. He adjusted the bottle until she began again. Brooke watched the transformation. You cannot teach her that people deserve patience while denying it to everyone else. These men are not infants. No. They are adults. That means you can question them, gather evidence, and decide based on facts. And if waiting gives the guilty person time to act, then increase security. Do not become the weapon your enemy expects you to be. Gabe looked toward the window. You sound certain there is an enemy behind this. No one takes photographs for weeks just to frighten me away. They are trying to provoke you. His eyes returned to hers. Into what? Violence. A mistake. Something that proves loving us made you unstable. Gabe looked down at Lucy. The bottle was nearly empty. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. Then they will be disappointed. Dean found the payment trail before noon. The money had moved through 3 shell companies before reaching an account in Caleb Ward's mother's name. The transfers began 6 weeks earlier, shortly after Brooke moved into the penthouse. The source was a consulting firm owned by a former attorney named Paul Mercer. Mercer had represented Victor Langston for nearly 20 years. Gabe read the report in silence. Brooke stood near the office door with Marcus. Caleb waited in a secured room 2 floors below. How certain are you? Gabe asked. Dean placed additional pages on the desk. Caleb accessed the security archive on the dates matching 4 photographs. His badge opened the private hallway 3 minutes before the nursery image was created. Marcus's face hardened. I trained him. Gabe looked at him. This is not your failure. He stood beside your daughter. Brooke heard the guilt beneath Marcus's voice. So did you, she said. Trusting someone is not the same as causing their betrayal. Marcus looked at her but said nothing. Gabe closed the file. Bring Caleb here. The office was cleared except for Gabe, Brooke, Marcus, and Dean. Caleb entered with his hands restrained in front of him. He looked tired but not frightened. That confirmed Brooke's suspicion. His gaze moved to Brooke first, then to Gabe. You should not have brought her into this room. Gabe sat behind the desk. You lost the right to decide where she stands. Caleb looked toward Marcus. You know what she has done to him. Marcus's expression did not change. I know what you did. Caleb laughed once. I did what everyone was too afraid to do. Gabe opened the file. You sold photographs of my daughter. I gave them proof that your priorities had changed. You gave my enemies access to my family. No one was supposed to touch Lucy. Brooke felt cold move through her. That is what people say when they create danger and want credit for not choosing the final consequence. Caleb turned toward her. You do not understand this family. No, but I understand justification. His mouth tightened. You came into his home and made him weak. Gabe rose. The room seemed to contract around him. Marcus shifted his weight. Brooke did not move. Caleb continued emboldened by the anger he had finally provoked. He gave away the northern route. He allowed men who murdered our people to walk away. He sits in meetings with a baby on his lap while everyone watches the Moretti name become a joke. Gabe crossed the room. Caleb lifted his chin. You used to know what strength required. Gabe stopped in front of him. For one long second, Brooke believed Caleb would die. Gabe's right hand closed. His shoulders became still. Brooke saw the old answer gathering inside him. She said his name once. Gabe. Not a command, not a plea. A reminder. He looked at her. Brooke held his gaze. Lucy was sleeping upstairs beneath Elena's photograph. Daisy's bracelet rested against Brooke's wrist. The room waited. Gabe opened his hand. He turned back toward Caleb. Who gave the order? Caleb's confidence faltered. Gabe's voice remained calm. Victor Langston. Caleb looked toward the floor. That is enough, Dean said. Gabe stepped closer. What did he promise you that the family would return to what it was? What did he promise you personally? Caleb said nothing. Dean opened another folder. Control of the Northern Security Division, a percentage of the recovered route, protection for your mother. Caleb's eyes moved toward him. Gabe's face showed no surprise. You sold my daughter for a promotion. I never sold Lucy. You photographed her sleeping. I photographed Brooke. She was holding my child. Caleb's breathing became uneven. Victor said the pressure would make her leave. He said once she was gone, you would think clearly again. Brooke stepped forward. And the complaints to my licensing board, Victor arranged them. The threat to Child Protection Services, I only provided the photographs. You gave him the weapon. Caleb looked at her with something close to hatred. You do not belong here. Brooke's voice remained steady. Neither do you. Gabe returned to his desk. Marcus, remove his restraints. Marcus looked surprised. So he can make a choice, Gabe said. The restraints came off. Caleb rubbed his wrists. Gabe placed a phone on the desk. You will record a complete statement. Every payment, every instruction, every person who helped Victor. Then you will be turned over to federal authorities with evidence connecting you to financial crimes and illegal surveillance. Caleb stared at him. You are giving me to the government? Yes. You know what happens to informants. That depends on how useful they are. Caleb's face twisted. You should kill me. Death would be easier. Gabe sat down. You believed restraint made me weak. You will have years to reconsider. Marcus escorted Caleb from the room. When the door closed, Gabe remained very still. Brooke moved toward him. You wanted to kill him? Yes. Why didn't you? Gabe looked at her. Because he wanted proof that loving you had destroyed my judgment. And it improved it. Brooke placed her hand over his. For once, neither of them needed to say more. Caleb's statement exposed Victor's larger plan. The warehouse attack had not been intended to begin a war. Victor had funded it through intermediaries, knowing Gabe's rivals would be blamed. He expected Gabe to retaliate violently. When Gabe negotiated instead, Victor changed strategies. The anonymous photographs, professional complaints, and threats against Lucy were designed to isolate Gabe from his allies. Dean projected the evidence across the office wall. Victor has spent months telling the senior families that you no longer have the discipline to lead. Gabe studied the names connected to the payments. He wants my position. He wants your organization divided. If you attack him publicly, he will claim Brooke made you reckless. If you do nothing, he will say you are afraid. Brooke looked at the date on an invitation lying near the files. What is this? Gabe did not answer immediately. Dean did. An annual dinner. The major families, their advisors, and several business partners attend. When, tomorrow night. Brooke looked at Gabe. You are expected to be there. Yes. And Victor. He is hosting. Brooke picked up the invitation. Then he expects you to walk into a room where he controls the story. Gabe's gaze moved to her. I will not walk in without one of my own. You are not attending. I did not ask. No. Brooke set the invitation down. You said this was a partnership. It is. Only until I make a choice you dislike. This is not a medical appointment or a licensing hearing. Every person in that room understands violence as a language. Then perhaps they need to hear another one. Gabe moved closer. Victor will use you. He already is. He will provoke you. I know. He will speak about Daisy, Elena, Lucy, anything that might make you lose control. Brooke touched the silver bracelet. He does not own those names. Gabe's expression softened, but his answer did not. No. Brooke stepped close enough to lower her voice. You keep saying they see me as your weakness. Let them meet me. The dinner took place above the Langston Hotel, an old Chicago landmark overlooking the river. Natalie helped Brooke dress in the penthouse. She chose a simple black gown with a high neckline and long sleeves. No jewels except Daisy's bracelet. Natalie fastened the clasp and met Brooke's eyes in the mirror. I still think this is a terrible idea. So do I. That is not comforting. It is honest. Natalie adjusted a strand of Brooke's hair. Are you afraid? Yes. Good. Fear may stop you from saying something heroic and foolish. Brooke smiled faintly. That sounds like advice you should give Gabe. I plan to. Before leaving, Brooke asked the driver to stop at the hospital memorial garden. Gabe joined her without asking why. Snow had melted into dark patches along the path. Bare trees stood above small plaques dedicated to children who had died. Daisy's name was engraved near the edge of the garden. Brooke had not visited since the funeral. She crouched and touched the cold metal. Gabe remained several steps behind her. Brooke closed her eyes. I thought loving Lucy meant I was moving away from you, she whispered. But I carry you everywhere. The wind moved through the branches. She pressed the bracelet to the plaque. Being her mother does not mean I stopped being yours. When Brooke stood, Gabe took her hand. He did not tell her it was time to leave. He waited until she led him back to the car. Victor Langston greeted them beneath a chandelier large enough to illuminate a theater. He was silver-haired, elegant, and smiling. Nothing about him suggested the man who had arranged surveillance of a baby. Gabriel. Victor embraced him like family. Then he turned to Brooke. So this is Ms. Lawson. Brooke offered her hand. Victor looked at it before taking it. I expected someone more fragile. People often confuse grief with weakness. His smile deepened. And people often confuse being needed with being loved. The words were meant to enter beneath her ribs. Brooke let them pass through. Then we both know appearances are unreliable. Gabe's hand settled lightly at the center of her back. Victor noticed. The dining room held 20 people around a polished table. Some were criminals. Others were attorneys, developers, and executives whose wealth depended on never asking where certain opportunities originated. Brooke sat beside Gabe. Victor controlled the conversation from the head of the table. At first they discussed contracts and territories. Then Victor placed his wineglass down. We should address the concern everyone is too polite to mention. Silence spread across the table. Victor looked at Brooke. Gabriel has allowed private attachments to interfere with decisions affecting all of us. Gabe's hand tightened around his glass. Brooke touched his knee beneath the table. Victor continued. A child is being raised in an unstable environment by a woman whose grief may have compromised her judgment. Gabe began to rise. Brooke pressed her hand more firmly against his knee. Then she looked at Victor. Lucy has a pediatrician, a developmental specialist, and documented medical care. Victor leaned back. That does not address your condition. My therapist can address my condition. My licensing board has already reviewed my role. Independent counsel has reviewed Lucy's care. A flicker of irritation crossed Victor's face. Brooke continued. You built your plan around the assumption that frightened people hide. The dining room became still. We documented everything instead. Dean entered through the side door carrying a leather case. Victor's smile disappeared. Dean placed copies of the payments to Caleb on the table. Then came the surveillance instructions, communications tied to the warehouse attack, and financial transfers connecting Victor to the dead men. The people nearest the documents began reading. No one spoke. Gabe stood. "You have two choices." Victor looked around the table. No one moved to defend him. "You retire. You surrender your interest in the northern route and accept responsibility for the unauthorized attacks." Victor's face darkened. "And the second?" "We provide everything to federal investigators, the families whose men you killed, and every business partner whose communications you compromised." Victor laughed once. "You would destroy all of us to protect a woman." "No!" Gabe looked toward Brooke. "I would expose you because you attacked my family and mistook restraint for surrender." Victor rose. "Your father would be ashamed of what she turned you into." Gabe remained calm. "She reminded me that power without control is only fear wearing an expensive suit." Victor searched the faces around the table. One by one they looked away. His authority disappeared without a gunshot. He signed the agreement before midnight. Outside the hotel, cold air struck Brooke's face. Gabe reached for her hand. For the first time in days, the tension in his body eased. Then a dark government vehicle pulled toward the curb. Two people stepped out. A woman in a gray coat held a thick file against her chest. The man beside her displayed an identification card. "Ms. Lawson, Mr. Moretti." Gabe moved slightly in front of Brooke. The woman opened the file. Brooke recognized the photographs inside. "We are investigators with the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services." She looked past them toward the car where Marcus sat beside Lucy. "We need to discuss the welfare of the child in your home." The woman's voice carried across the hotel entrance with professional calm. Behind her, traffic moved along the river. Headlights slid across the wet pavement. Guests leaving the dinner slowed when they noticed the government identification in her hand. Gabe stepped between the investigators and Brooke. "You can speak to my attorney." The woman looked past him. "We can, Mr. Moretti. We also need to speak directly with Miss Lawson and observe Lucy." Brooke touched Gabe's arm. He did not move. "Gabe." His shoulders remained rigid. They arrived outside a private event with photographs obtained through illegal surveillance. "I know. They are using Victor's evidence. They may not know where it came from. That does not make them safe." Brooke moved beside him instead of remaining behind him. "No," she said quietly. "It makes them part of something we have to face." The investigator offered her identification. "My name is Rebecca Cole. This is Daniel Harris. We received a report alleging an inappropriate caregiving arrangement, emotional instability in the home, and possible exposure of a minor to criminal activity." Brooke read the card, then looked at the thick file. "Is Lucy in immediate danger according to the report?" Rebecca's expression remained neutral. "That is what we are here to determine." Marcus stepped out of the car with Lucy in his arms. The baby had awakened. She looked toward Brooke, then reached for her. Brooke crossed the sidewalk and took her. Lucy settled immediately against Brooke's chest. Rebecca watched the exchange. So did Gabe. Brooke could feel the tension in him from several feet away. "We will cooperate," she said. Gabe turned toward her. "Brooke, we will cooperate through counsel. Every interview will be documented. Every photograph will be examined. They will see Lucy's records and speak to her doctors." Rebecca closed the file. "That is acceptable." Brooke looked at Gabe. "If we run, Victor's accusation becomes the only story anyone hears." His jaw tightened. Brooke held Lucy closer. She deserves the truth to be stronger than the lie. The first interview took place the following morning in the penthouse. Two attorneys sat near the windows. One represented Gabe. The other represented Brooke alone. That had been Brooke's condition. She would not allow Gabe's legal team to speak for her. Rebecca and Daniel arrived at 9. Marcus escorted them through security but did not remain in the room. Brooke sat in the nursery with Lucy on the rug. Gabe took the chair beside the crib. The investigators began with simple questions. Who prepared Lucy's meals? Who slept near her? How often Brooke nursed her? Whether Gabe had ever prevented Brooke from leaving? Whether Brooke had been paid? Whether Lucy had witnessed violence? Each question seemed ordinary on its own. Together they formed a version of the household that felt foreign. Brooke answered without embellishment. The arrangement began after Lucy experienced severe feeding distress at a wedding. Her father gave permission for one emergency feeding. The next morning we consulted a pediatrician and a lactation specialist. Rebecca looked at the notes in front of her. You began living here less than 24 hours after meeting Mr. Moretti. Yes. Do you consider that a normal decision? No. Gabe shifted beside her. Brooke continued before he could speak. It was an extraordinary decision made during an extraordinary situation. That does not mean it was automatically safe or correct. That is why I created conditions and involved independent medical professionals. Were you emotionally stable at the time? Brooke looked down at Daisy's bracelet. I was grieving. That was not my question. No, Brooke said. I was not fully stable. I had stopped attending therapy. I was sleeping badly. I felt detached from my work and from my own life. Gabe looked at her. She did not turn toward him. Rebecca's pen moved across the page. Then why should anyone believe you were capable of deciding what was best for Lucy? Because being wounded does not make a person incapable of judgment. It means the judgment should be supported by safeguards. What safeguards? Medical supervision. My own attorney. My therapist. My apartment remained available. My finances remained separate. Lucy was never my patient. My professional record stayed private. Daniel looked toward Gabe. Did you ever monitor Ms. Lawson without her knowledge? Gabe answered calmly. My security team monitored threats around the building. That was not the question. Gabe's eyes hardened. Brooke placed one hand on his wrist. He looked at her. Then he returned his attention to Daniel. Yes. At the beginning, I knew when she left the building and where the driver took her. Did she know? Not every detail. Did she consent? No. Brooke felt the honesty strike the room. Gabe continued. When she learned the extent of it, she objected. I changed the policy. Rebecca looked at Brooke. Why did you stay? Brooke thought of Logan checking her phone, deciding which friends were dangerous and calling his jealousy love. She thought of Gabe listening when she told him to stop. Because he changed the policy. That was enough, no. It was evidence that he could hear a boundary he disliked and respected anyway. Rebecca turned another page. Do you love him? The question was so direct that even Gabe looked surprised. Yes. Do you believe that affects your assessment of Lucy's safety? Of course it does. Gabe's hand became still beneath hers. Brooke met Rebecca's eyes. Love affects judgment. So does fear. So does suspicion. That is why Lucy's care is not being assessed only by me. She gestured toward the binders arranged on the table. Her pediatrician has documented weight gain, improved muscle tone, increased food intake, and stronger attachment behaviors. Her feeding specialist has documented progress with bottles and solid foods. Her developmental therapist has observed her with both Gabe and me. Daniel opened one binder. The pages contained daily feeding totals, weight charts, sleep records, and notes from every medical appointment. Rebecca watched Lucy crawl toward Gabe. The baby used his trouser leg to pull herself upright. Gabe reached down, but he did not lift her. He allowed her to balance. Lucy smiled at him. Then she turned toward Brooke and sat heavily on the rug. Rebecca's expression softened by a fraction. What happens if Ms. Lawson leaves? She asked Gabe. His eyes remained on Lucy. I raise my daughter, without another caregiver, with qualified help if necessary. Would you prevent Ms. Lawson from taking Lucy? Lucy is legally my daughter. That was not the question. Gabe looked at Brooke. If Brooke left me, I would not use Lucy to punish her. Brooke's chest tightened. Rebecca noticed. And if something happened to you? Gabe did not answer immediately. The silence revealed a gap none of them had resolved. My will names my brother as temporary guardian, he said. Does Lucy know him? Not well. Rebecca closed the file. That needs to change. After 3 hours, the investigators toured the penthouse. They examined the nursery, the kitchen, Brooke's office, the security system, and the locked areas of the home. Gabe did not allow access to business records without a warrant. Brooke did not ask him to. The investigators spoke separately with Marcus, Dr. Park, Rachel, Natalie, and Brooke's therapist. They returned twice over the next 10 days. Each visit left Gabe more restless. He began checking the nursery in the middle of the night, even when Lucy had not made a sound. On the third night, Brooke found him standing beside the crib. Lucy slept beneath a pale blue blanket. You are going to wake her, Brooke whispered. I wanted to make sure she was breathing. You checked 10 minutes ago. Gabe looked toward the window. They can remove children during an investigation, not without cause. Cause can be created. Victor's evidence is already falling apart. That does not mean the system will move quickly enough. Brooke entered the room and stood beside him. You cannot threaten this fear into submission. His jaw tightened. I know. That may be the first time you have admitted that. Gabe looked at Lucy. I built my life around making sure no one could take anything from me again. Brooke understood the sentence was not only about Elena. What did your father take? Gabe was quiet for a long moment. My choices. Brooke waited. After my mother died, my father decided grief was weakness. Antonio and I were given responsibilities instead of time. When Antonio was killed, my father told me I would lead the family or watch it collapse. How old were you? 23. You never wanted it. I wanted to survive it. Brooke touched his hand. And now? Now I want Lucy to have choices I never had. Then begin with the choice to trust that caring for her does not require controlling everything around her. Gabe turned his hand beneath hers. What if trust costs me both of you? What if control does? He looked at her. The answer frightened him because he already knew it was possible. The investigation closed 3 weeks later. Rebecca returned to the penthouse alone. She sat across from Brooke and Gabe in the living room. Lucy played with a wooden ring on the floor between them. Our assessment found no evidence that Lucy is being neglected or abused. Gabe's expression did not change. Brooke released the breath she had been holding. Rebecca continued. Her medical progress is substantial. The caregiving arrangement is unconventional, but it is supported by independent professionals. She looked at Gabe. We remain concerned about the security risks connected to your business activities. That is not a parenting assessment, Gabe said. It becomes one when those activities result in surveillance of your child. Brooke glanced toward him. Gabe accepted the statement without argument. Rebecca turned to Brooke. We are also concerned about emotional boundaries. You entered this home while actively grieving. You became a primary caregiver very quickly. I understand. You will continue personal therapy. Yes. And Lucy will maintain relationships with caregivers other than you. Yes. Rebecca nodded. The case will close without further action. We recommend a formal guardianship plan and continued developmental monitoring. Gabe stood. Rebecca did not. One more thing, Mr. Moretti. He looked at her. You have resources most parents do not. Do not confuse resources with immunity. Gabe's face became unreadable. Then he said, I do not. Rebecca looked toward the security cameras. You are learning. After she left, Gabe stood beside the windows. Brooke picked Lucy up from the floor. "It is over," she said. "No." Brooke approached him. "The investigation is over. The threat that created it is not. Victor no longer has the support to act. There will always be another Victor." Brooke shifted Lucy against her hip. "Then we cannot build our family around defeating every future enemy before they exist." Gabe turned toward them. "What do you suggest?" "We build something that can survive your absence." The words struck him. Brooke continued. "You need a legal guardian, Lucy knows. You need a will that does not leave her with a stranger. I need legal standing if I am going to remain her mother in everything except blood." Gabe's eyes held hers. "You want to adopt her?" Brooke looked at Lucy. The baby had begun playing with Daisy's bracelet again. "I want the choice to be deliberate, not assumed, not granted because I live here or because you love me." Gabe stepped closer. "What if I say yes? Then we speak to an attorney." "That is not what I meant." Brooke looked up. His voice softened. "What if I say, I want you to be her mother?" Emotion tightened Brooke's throat. "Then I need you to understand that becoming Lucy's mother does not make me less Daisy's." Gabe touched her face. "I would never ask you to choose between them." 2 days later, Gabe changed his will. Marcus became temporary guardian if both Brooke and Gabe were unavailable. Natalie became the second-named guardian. Brooke was granted immediate authority over Lucy's medical care. The step-parent adoption process could not begin until Brooke and Gabe were legally married, but the attorney prepared every document in advance. Gabe signed each page without hesitation. When they left the law office, Brooke noticed his silence. "What are you thinking? That paper can accomplish things guns cannot. That may be the most important discovery of your life." He looked offended. Brooke smiled. Gabe took her hand. The professional licensing hearing took place the following month. Brooke entered the boardroom alone. Gabe waited outside with Natalie and Lucy. He had offered to attend. Brooke refused. The board members asked questions about dual relationships, professional judgment, and the possibility that Brooke's grief had influenced her decisions. Brooke did not defend herself as flawless. "I acted from compassion and personal pain at the same time," she said. Those motives were not cleanly separated. One board member leaned forward. "Do you believe your actions were ethical?" The first emergency feeding occurred with the father's permission and was followed by medical consultation. My continuing role was not clinical. Lucy was never my patient. That was not the full question. Brooke looked at the panel. "I believe some parts of the arrangement required boundaries I did not establish quickly enough. I resumed therapy. I retained independent counsel. I reduced my caseload and created physical separation between my professional work and my home life." Another member reviewed the documents. "Would you make the same decision again?" Brooke thought of the wedding, Lucy's screams, Gabe's exhausted eyes, Daisy's empty blanket. "I would help the child," she said. "I would involve medical and legal professionals sooner." The board allowed Brooke to retain her license. She would receive professional supervision for 1 year and submit quarterly documentation regarding her practice. When she stepped into the hallway, Gabe rose immediately. Lucy stood between his knees holding both of his hands. Natalie searched Brooke's face. "Well," Brooke smiled, "I am still a therapist." Natalie embraced her. Gabe waited until Brooke turned toward him. "I did not call anyone," he said. Brooke laughed through tears. "I am very proud of you. I found the experience unbearable. You survived." "Barely." Lucy released one of his fingers and reached for Brooke. Brooke lifted her. Gabe placed his hand at Brooke's back. For the first time, the gesture did not feel like guidance or protection. It felt like partnership. The changes inside Gabe's organization began quietly. He sold 2 businesses that depended heavily on illegal distribution. He moved shipping contracts into legitimate companies with audited records. He ended arrangements that exposed warehouses near residential neighborhoods to violence. Several senior men objected. One resigned. Another accused Gabe of allowing domestic life to weaken his judgment. Gabe listened without raising his voice. "The organization exists to protect the family," he said. "The family does not exist to feed the organization." Marcus stood beside him during those meetings. Dean handled the transition documents. The process did not make Gabe innocent. Brooke never pretended it did. There were still questions he could not answer without exposing crimes. There were still nights when he came home silent and washed his hands before touching Lucy. But the blood disappeared from his cuffs. Fewer calls came after midnight. More dinners happened with all three of them at the table. Gabe began seeing a therapist. He refused to discuss the sessions for the first month. Brooke did not ask. Then, one evening while washing bottles, he said, "She believes I associate rest with vulnerability." Brooke looked over her shoulder. "Your therapist?" "Yes." I fell asleep during a meeting yesterday." "That does not answer the question." Gabe gave her a dark look. Brooke smiled and returned to the bottles. A week later, Gabe drove Brooke and Lucy to Elena's grave. The cemetery stood on a quiet hill outside the city. Snow had begun melting around the stones, revealing damp earth beneath. Gabe carried Lucy. Brooke carried white lilies. Elena Moretti's name was carved beneath a simple cross. Beloved wife. Beloved mother. Gabe placed Lucy on the ground and held both of her hands as she stood unsteadily. Brooke arranged the lilies. Lucy touched the stone. "Mama," she said. The sound was unclear. It might have been a word. It might have been only a practiced syllable. Gabe closed his eyes. Brooke knelt beside Lucy. "Yes," she whispered. "This is your mama, Elena." Gabe looked at her. Brooke continued speaking to Lucy. "She loved you before she ever saw your face. She sang to you. She imagined the person you would become." Lucy pressed her palm against the stone. Gabe's voice broke when he spoke. "She would have liked you." Brooke looked up. "You cannot know that. She would have argued with you constantly." "That sounds more believable." Gabe smiled through the grief in his eyes. Later that afternoon, they drove to the hospital memorial garden. Daisy's plaque shone beneath weak sunlight. Brooke carried Lucy this time. Gabe remained beside her. Brooke crouched. "This is Daisy," she told Lucy. "She was my first daughter." Her voice trembled. Lucy reached toward the silver plaque. Brooke guided her hand gently. "You never met her, but she is part of our family." Gabe knelt beside them. Brooke touched Daisy's name. "I used to think surviving meant leaving you behind." The wind moved through the bare branches. "I know better now." She looked at Lucy. "Loving her does not erase you." Gabe placed one hand over Brooke's. For several minutes, the three of them remained beneath the trees. No one tried to make the grief smaller. 2 months after Victor's fall, Gabe asked Brooke to attend a charity event at Blackwood Estate. She became suspicious when the car turned toward the chapel instead of the main ballroom. "There is no charity event." "No." "You lied. I allowed an incorrect assumption. That is a lie wearing a suit." Gabe looked almost amused. Marcus opened the chapel doors. The room was empty except for candles. Rain did not strike the windows this time. Evening sunlight moved through the stained glass and scattered color across the aisle. Natalie stood near the back holding Lucy. Brooke stopped. Gabe offered his hand. She took it. He led her toward the alcove where she had first held his daughter. The small bench remained beneath the window. Brooke touched the polished wood. "This is where Lucy stopped crying." Gabe stood in front of her. "This is where I realized there were things power could not give me." Brooke looked toward Natalie. Her best friend was crying already. Gabe lowered himself to one knee. For once, no guards stood in the room. No attorneys waited nearby. No documents needed signatures. Only Gabe Brooke, and the child who had brought them together. "I cannot promise you a life without danger," Gabe said. "I cannot promise that I will never make a mistake or become afraid enough to reach for control." Brooke's eyes filled. "I can promise that I will tell you the truth. I will protect your freedom as fiercely as I protect your life. I will remember Daisy with you. I will make sure Lucy knows Elena. I will spend every day becoming a man worthy of the family you chose to build with me." He opened a small velvet box. The ring held a single diamond in an antique setting. "I do not want you because Lucy needs you. I do not want you because you saved us. I want you because you see every part of me and still demand that I become more than the worst thing I have done." Brooke covered her mouth. "Marry me." She let the silence hold them for one heartbeat. Then two. "Yes." Gabe exhaled. "But I keep my apartment until the wedding." A laugh echoed from the back of the chapel. Natalie wiped her face. Gabe closed his eyes briefly. "Of course you do." Brooke held out her hand. He placed the ring on her finger. Then he stood and kissed her in the same alcove where their lives had first crossed. Lucy began clapping from Natalie's arms. The wedding took place in early summer beside the lake. Brooke chose Blackwood Estate because the place no longer belonged only to the worst day and the strangest decision of her life. White chairs faced the water. Soft wind moved through the trees. Natalie stood beside Brooke as maid of honor. Marcus had been assigned to guide Lucy down the aisle in a small decorated wagon. Lucy refused. She stood beside the wagon, shook her head, and reached for Marcus. He lifted her with complete seriousness. The guests laughed as the head of Moretti Security carried the flower girl toward the altar. 2 chairs remained empty in the front row. One held Elena's photograph beside white lilies. The other held Daisy's yellow blanket and silver bracelet. Brooke had removed the bracelet that morning for the first time since Natalie gave it to her. She wanted Daisy's memory visible, not hidden beneath a sleeve. Gabe waited beneath an arch of green branches and white roses. He wore a black suit without a weapon beneath it. Brooke knew because she had checked. When she reached him, he took both of her hands. Lucy stood between Marcus and Natalie, gripping a handful of flower petals. The officiant asked Gabe to speak first. He looked at Brooke. "You entered my life without permission." A soft laugh moved through the guests. "You told me my daughter was grieving when everyone else called her difficult. You told me I was hiding from fatherhood when everyone else was too afraid to question me." His voice deepened. "You taught me that protection without trust is another kind of prison. I promise to protect your freedom as fiercely as your life. I promise to hear you when fear makes me want to command. I promise Daisy will always have a place in our home, and Elena will always have a place in Lucy's story." Brooke's tears fell freely. Gabe continued. "I promise that Lucy will grow up knowing strength is not measured by how many people fear her father. It is measured by how deeply she is loved." The officiant turned to Brooke. She looked at Gabe. "You never asked me to forget what I lost. You sat beside me when I could not speak. You said Daisy's name when everyone else treated it like a wound they were afraid to touch." Brooke's voice trembled, but she did not look away. "I promise to love the man you are and challenge the man you are becoming. I promise not to call silence peace or control protection. I promise to stand beside the father Lucy deserves, not because you are perfect, but because you keep choosing to be present." Lucy made a small sound. Then she began to cry. The guests went still. The memory of another wedding seemed to move through the rows. Brooke turned instinctively. Gabe released one of her hands. He crossed to Marcus and lifted Lucy into his arms. She cried against his shoulder. Gabe did not look toward Brooke for help. He rocked his daughter slowly. "I'm here, Piccola." Lucy continued crying. Gabe began singing Elena's song. His voice carried softly across the garden. The baby's cries weakened. Her head settled against his chest. Silence returned. Brooke watched him. The man who had once stood helpless in a chapel doorway now held his daughter with complete confidence. Gabe returned to the altar with Lucy in his arms. The officiant smiled. "I believe we can continue." They exchanged rings. When Gabe kissed Brooke, Lucy placed one hand against both of their faces. The guests rose around them. Natalie cried openly. Marcus pretended not to. At the reception, Lucy took 3 unsteady steps between Brooke and Gabe. She fell onto the grass. Gabe moved to catch her, but Brooke held his arm. "Let her try." Lucy pushed herself upright. Natalie stood nearby, holding a glass of champagne. "She is going to control this entire family one day." Gabe watched his daughter begin walking again. She already does. As evening settled over, the lake lights glowed inside the reception tent. Music drifted across the lawn. Brooke stepped away for a moment and stood near the water. She wore Daisy's bracelet again. The charm rested beside her wedding ring. Gabe joined her without speaking. Inside the tent, Lucy laughed as Marcus lifted her above his head. Brooke watched the reflection of the lights move across the dark lake. "I used to think healing meant the pain would disappear." Gabe stood beside her. "What do you think now?" Brooke touched the bracelet. "I think it means the pain stops deciding whether I am allowed to live." Gabe kissed her temple. Lucy's voice rose from the reception. "Mama." Brooke closed her eyes. The word did not replace Daisy. It did not erase Elena. It did not belong to grief. It belonged to Lucy. Brooke turned toward the sound. Gabe offered his hand. Together they walked back toward the light. Lucy stood at the edge of the dance floor, reaching for them. Brooke took one of her hands. Gabe took the other. Between them, Lucy stepped forward. The first time she cried, she stopped a wedding. The second time, her father knew exactly how to bring her home.